Why is an offer of judgment important in Nevada personal injury litigation? So in this scenario, you've got Pat suing Chris because Chris rear-ended Pat in an auto accident and Pat was injured. So Pat makes Chris something called an offer of judgment. Let's say it's for $100,000. What this means is Pat saying formally, I'm willing to accept $100,000 to resolve this case. So if Chris's insurance company decides that they're going to pay the $100,000 to Pat, then they agree to the offer of judgment. They cut a check to Pat for $100,000. The case is over with. Done. Now, let's say the scenario goes a little bit differently. Pat makes a $100,000 offer of judgment to Chris, and Chris's insurance company says, no, I'm not going to pay it. Well, the lawsuit goes on. The lawsuit goes to trial, and then at trial, the jury awards Pat $101,000 or more. So what that means is the award was more than $100,000, which in legal speak means that Pat beat the offer of judgment. And so what happens now? Well, Pat says, hey, you could have settled for $100,000. You rejected that. Now I got a verdict that's more than $100,000, so I'm entitled to the benefits of an offer of judgment. So what is that? Well, it means Pat gets things that Pat may ordinarily get anyway, court costs, interest from before the judgment, pre-judgment interest, post-judgment interest. But the really important thing that the offer of judgment does is in Nevada, at least, it allows Pat to get attorney's fees. Now, why is that important? Well, most personal injury cases are financed on a contingency fee. So the lawyer says, hey, Pat, look, I'll take your case. You don't have to pay me hourly. You don't have to cut me a check right now. But when we win, you owe me a third of your recovery or 40% of your recovery if we go to trial. So in this case, Pat went to trial. Pat beat the offer of judgment with a verdict over $100,000. So now the judge has the discretion to award Pat attorney's fees. So without an offer of judgment, if Pat got a verdict of $101,000, then Pat's lawyer would get a third or 40%. Let's say it's 40% to make the math easy. So of that $101,000, Pat's lawyer would get 40% or roughly $40,000, and Pat would be left with $60,000 or whatever it is after the costs are taken out. Now, let's say Pat does the offer of judgment. The verdict is $101,000. It beat the offer of judgment by $1. Now, Pat may get attorney's fees. So what the judge will say is, all right, lawyer, let's say you had a 40% contingency fee. What I'm going to do is add 40% to the $101,000 verdict. So now Chris's insurance company, instead of paying $101,000, is going to have to pay $141-ish thousand. So in this scenario, the lawyer is going to get that 40%, and Pat's going to get a whole bunch more money than Pat would have got if Pat did not serve the offer of judgment. So if you're involved in personal injury litigation in Nevada, definitely talk to your lawyer about an offer of judgment. It may end up putting more money in your pocket.